Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on my live stream to talk about the Clemson Syracuse game coming up this Saturday, 12 o'clock. Local listings here on the East Coast has it on ABC, so check your local listings. If you're new here, I am Brian Knight. I am not Bobby Durkins. This is one of my very few live streams I've done so far. It's on my laptop, so it doesn't have the same sound quality as pre-recorded because I run it through a really good mic and everything, but it's a little easier for me to do and get to jump right in and create more content to talk about the stories we want to talk about and go from there. So hopefully everyone can hear me well. If you're in here, let me know if you can hear me well. Parker Henderson getting in here says, "Howdy, bud. Please get my mind off work." I can do that. We got some really good news to talk about, but do let me know in the comments section that you can hear me well. So as I'm navigating this live stream, I'm going to pull up some simultaneous windows that I can look at. So let's dive right into the Syracuse game. By the way, before I go any farther, if you're not subscribed to this channel, it is free. So just hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications. It lets you know when I'm actually posting a video or going on a live stream, and hit the thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. So Syracuse last year had a very underwhelming year. They were 5-7. I do have their notes here. They were 5-7. Dino Babers has been with this crew for 6 years. I think one of the more interesting stories in college football, because I think he's a really good coach. I think that he's kind of in the same situation that Dave Clawson is in at Wake Forest. You're going to have a couple of really good years, then you'll have some really crappy years. You'll have an okay year, then you'll have a really good year, and then everybody leaves, and that's really kind of what has happened with Dino Babers. And I'm always blown away that when some really good job openings come open, Dino just kind of stays at Syracuse. Nobody really says too much to him. And just tell you, if I was hiring, if I was an AD at a lot of schools, I would want to dial him up because I just like his style. And so, of course, I'm down here in South Carolina. He's up in New York. I don't hear about every little thing that goes on with Syracuse, but he seems to keep a solidly clean program. So kudos to him, especially in an era where a lot of funny business goes on. Let's talk about the game. They're 6-0 so far. Really some underwhelming wins until they beat NC State this past week, which sets up a number 14 versus number 5 for this season. And when you look at it on paper, and I know the game is not played on paper, it's played on the field, but if I gave you a really good starting lineup on paper, you would step back and go, hey, we got a good chance. So on paper, excuse me, their team has not done anything that's just truly amazing. They did beat NC State. NC State was without Devin Leary. He's done for the year. They were playing, if my memory serves me correct, NC State was actually playing a quarterback who was playing at Charleston Southern, if my memory serves me correct, last year. So they did not go up against Devin Leary. And it stayed a really close game for the majority of the time. With that said, Clemson has had problems with Syracuse throughout Dabo Swinney's tenure. Not every year, but just enough to be a pain in the butt. Well, okay. I would probably say one of the ones that really sticks out is when Clemson lost on a weird Friday night game when Kelly Bryant was a quarterback. Clemson went up to Syracuse, lost to Syracuse on a Friday night game. It still to this day doesn't even seem real. It was really odd. Then, of course, the next season, Syracuse comes to Clemson. We had just had the Kelly Bryant divorce from Clemson. Trevor Lawrence is named the starter. Trevor gets knocked out of the game early on. Chase Bryce takes over, leads one of the big comebacks. It was epic. One of the most epic moments, defining season-defining moments, national championship-defining moments. It was a defining moment for Chase Bryce. So there's a lot of really good things going on, or a lot of really good competition that's went on. Last year, Clemson struggling, going back and forth. Even with a 5-7 Syracuse team, Clemson only won 17-14. So what are we looking at for this game? As of right now, Tuesday, if anybody's watching this, later on in the week, this is Tuesday. I've looked up injury reports. That can change on the daily. I mean, good grief. People have been perfectly healthy on Friday night, wake up Saturday morning, stumble or something, and then they're not able to play a 12 o'clock game. So obviously this could change at any moment. With that said, Clemson's pretty healthy. We're pretty healthy across the board. Our main players are back. I know that XT had to come out of the game. He's just had, man, I feel so bad for him. He's had a lot of issues he's had to deal with, but he should be coming back. Our secondary will be back. Our line should be whole. But for Syracuse, and I looked this up before I got on here, and if you're a Syracuse fan, maybe you've got a hold of some injury lists that are a little more updated. I do know that at the beginning of the season that Syracuse lost 5 players at the very beginning of the season, and they pretty much they're done with. Now, as I said, if this has been updated, please let me know. But I'm not going to do like the regular media does to us, and we were missing 3/4 of our secondary, and the guys who are paid to do what I'm doing. I do this because I enjoy it. I'm not a sports writer. I'm not a sports professional. I do this just for fun, and I'm on break from work right now. So I'm doing this, and I was able to Google an injury list, and the people who were actually paid money and treated like they know what they're doing, they barely talked about that. And when that's a big deal, if you're missing 3 out of 4 players in your secondary, that's kind of sort of a really big deal. And so I'm trying to give respect to Syracuse. I know that they lost 5 players at the beginning of the season. Here's some of the names, may not be all of them. Fullback and tight end Chris Elmore, linebacker Stephon Thompson, wide receiver Isaiah Jones. Let me see, who else? Dennis Jaquez Jr. And then earlier this week, there was another one, Garrett Williams, who is a DB who could possibly at least be banged up for the game. So that is a big deal for Syracuse. So we'll see how that plays into their depth. Obviously that was at the beginning of the season when they lost those 5 players, so they've adjusted, but you will always have depth problems, especially if Clemson's wearing you down. And Clemson tends to wear a lot of people down. That's part of their game. A lot of top teams like Clemson, that's what they do, because when you're a top team, people will come to the game to see you, and they won't come to see anybody else. If you look at Clemson tickets when they go somewhere, those tickets are always the most expensive tickets of the year. Why? Because they're a top team. People are willing to pay to come see them. And just like people are willing to pay to come see them, teams are saving their very best efforts for a top-notch team to possibly knock them off. That's just kind of like a duh statement, and we know that. With that said, Clemson will receive their very best at their opponent's very best at the beginning of the game, and then Clemson's talent and depth and coaching wears them down. This is very common. So the Valley's going to have a 12 o'clock game on Saturday. I think it's the first 12 o'clock game of the season. And it's going to be interesting. I can't remember what time the Furman game was, but who cares? But it's going to be a 12 o'clock game, and Clemson's still going to be rocking. Because if they win this game, the division of the ACC, this division of the ACC, the Atlantic, is basically theirs. I mean, the only other team they have to play within the division left would be Louisville. I know they play Miami, but Miami is on the other side of the conference. So, and I'm just telling you, I don't see Louisville playing with us whatsoever. That's going to be, I think, a nasty game for Louisville, especially if Malik Cunningham can't get healthy. But with this Syracuse team, just a few numbers. I hate reading numbers because you can go look these up yourself. But I will tell you, the quarterback for Syracuse, he's done pretty solid. Garrett Schrader, we're looking at about 152 passes. He's completed 106 of them, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 1,434 yards. The guy's taking care of the ball decently. I mean, you throw that many passes, you're going to see an increase amount of turnovers. So there's a chance that you're going to turn the ball over the more you throw it. That's obvious. DJ coming into the game, man, what a story, DJ. Very proud of him. I'm very, very proud of him. 213 passes. He's completed 137 of them, but 1,665 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And one of those is a one true interception, but for Syracuse, they're running attack. Sean Tucker, 644 yards and 6 touchdowns. Shipley, of course, 96 carries, 567 yards, 8 touchdowns. Antonio Williams right now is our leading receiver at 24 receptions, 334 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's the true freshman out of Dutch Fork. And then Gaston II is their leading receiver, 507 yards with 5 touchdowns. So Clemson being a 13.5-point favorite, there's definitely a great chance. I mean, they're playing in the Valley. Clemson going to lock up the conference. Clemson is back home after having to go play at Boston College, and so it's good for them to be back home. After this, they're going to have a break, if I'm looking at this correctly, and then they're going to turn around and they'll play Notre Dame. They'll go to Notre Dame, which that game has changed tremendously, of its importance. Notre Dame starting off the season slow. It looked like they were getting back onto things, and then Stanford beats them. So Notre Dame has messed up a lot of pick'ems for me, and I know a lot of people who's paid a lot of money to go to that Notre Dame game, and unfortunately, had they saved their money until about now, they could go for a lot cheaper because of it. Let's talk about some of Syracuse's opponents. Of course, I talked about this past week. They had the most impressive game of the season, that probably the best competition that they've played, and that was NC State. They were Devin Leary less, so they didn't have to deal with him. Before that, they played Wagner, not a big deal. They played UVA, barely won that game, 22-20. And that was at the Carrier Dome. This is by the way, their very first game was at Connecticut. They won that game. But after that, Syracuse has been home for 4 consecutive weeks. This is their first road game since the 10th of September, that is. And so you've got Purdue. They barely beat Purdue. So out of respect to them and history and Dino Babers being who he is, exactly how good is Syracuse? Can I say that Syracuse is actually the number 14 team in the country? No. Just like I can't say that Oregon, who lost, I don't know, 49-3 to Georgia about 5 or 6 weeks ago, is now the number 10 team in the country. I don't buy that. Yes, teams get better. They're supposed to. But to get beat that bad and then jump up that far, I'm sorry, I haven't seen anything out of Oregon that says that they should be the number 10 team in the country. And right now, Syracuse, I look at them, I would say that it would probably serve them to be better somewhere around number 20, number 21-ish, because you do have, there is some respect that they're undefeated, but who have they played? Clemson, on the other hand, you can step back and say, hey, hey, they duked it out with Florida State. In fact, was tearing up Florida State and then took their foot off the pedal. And that's another subject for the end of this video. They beat the crap out of BC. They beat NC State with Devin Leary, missing a lot of their secondary. They went into double overtime against Wake Forest, won, missing the majority of their secondary and some players. So Clemson has been tested. Could the competition be better for Clemson? Of course it could be. But Clemson is consistently growing week to week, and that's what we want to see. This is what you want to see at this time of the year. It's fine that they get a slow start and then they grow into it. The problem that I see with Syracuse is, other than playing NC State, I can't see anything that says that Syracuse is a good team. In fact, I look at Syracuse and I say, you had 4 consecutive games at home, and you blew it to Purdue, and you won, or almost blew it to Purdue, and you won, and you barely beat UVA. You barely beat them. Okay, a win is a win is a win. Of course, you'll take a win over a loss. But I'm saying when you're looking at them and you're comparing them to Clemson, and you ask yourself, you say, whoa, hold up. Compare apples to apples, line to line, quarterback to quarterback, playmaker to playmaker. It doesn't look right. Nothing looks right here, and that's why I'm saying I don't even like to discuss stats at the same time, because if you look at stats, they're averaging more yards a game than Clemson is, and they're allowing fewer yards than Clemson is. The key is who's Clemson been playing versus who's Syracuse been playing, and it's obvious, and that's just it. I mean, it is, when you look at this and you consider apples to apples, I know that's a really corny saying, it just doesn't look good for Syracuse. If Clemson, let me tell you, and I'm going to go into the keys of this, and then I'm going to close up this video because I just don't want to ramble. If I am Syracuse, I cannot play the game I played against NC State against Clemson and expect to win. Because as I was watching that Tennessee and Alabama game, I also had another screen on, which I live streamed, of NC State and Syracuse. And I can only imagine what would have happened had Devin Leary played. And that's just it. The truth is that if they even remotely play like they did against NC State against Clemson, Clemson wins by 3 touchdowns at least. So what do I see with Syracuse and their game? They're just play fast. Play as fast as you can. Take care of the football. It really comes down to the ABCs of football. I just do not. I think that this is going to be one of the most over-exalted games of the season. Meaning, Syracuse is undefeated. They're ranked 14th. This is for the division, basically. You know what I'm saying? This is for the Atlantic Division representative to go to Charlotte and play for the ACC championship against whoever's going to end up winning over on the Coastal Division. Right now, North Carolina's on top, but I mean, come on, y'all. And it's nuts. I think that the only concern that I have with Clemson is that they go into this game and they look at what I'm looking at and they say, we've got this. And it's easy to say Sweeney will have them ready. I mean, I respect Sweeney. Sweeney's done more for Clemson than anybody else has done for Clemson. With that said, how do you get yourself up for a game that it's really it's just exaggerated? Number 14, Syracuse, that doesn't look right. 6-0, well, who have they played? And it's for the division. I just hope that Clemson will actually come in and do their due diligence. If Clemson lines up and just plays solid football, throws the ball downfield, let DJ continue to do what he does and run the football. And then on the defensive side, and the defensive squad plays well, I mean, this game could turn ugly really, really quick. And so I really, the biggest challenge goes to Clemson. All you need to do is to come into this game and run your game plan. Don't, and if you're on the coaching staff, don't take your foot off the pedal. Don't take your foot off the flipping pedal. I know that you don't have to show everything that you have in the playbook, but I'm telling you, we were beating Florida State, and I say we because I've been pulling for this team when they sucked, and nobody mattered. Nobody complained then if you said we. I mean, I paid a lot of money to go to their games. I mean, my goodness, I had to mortgage a kid. But the fact is that Clemson was up by 20 points going into the fourth quarter and took their foot off the pedal. I mean, they did. And I'm just saying that you can't do that. We're at the point of the season that you have to bring more to the table every week. You have to bring. It's like, I know going up to Notre Dame is always interesting because Notre Dame is Notre Dame. But I am telling you, Notre Dame game, forget where it's at, forget all this much stuff. Clemson should beat Notre Dame by 14 to 17 points easily. Forget the stadium, forget the helmets, forget the history. History is history. The players that made them great are no longer there. Their team is in shambles. You should beat the crap out of them. But if you go in there and you take your foot off the pedal, good luck. So Clemson, come in, run your ball game. Throw the ball on these guys. Throw it. Continue to run those wheel routes and streaks with Antonio Williams alone. DJ is doing great. Let him loose. And the run game will follow. I would just sling the rock on this. And I would use the loud volume, of Death Valley to tear the place down. That's what I do. I'm going to get into some comments, and I'm going to have to go. Real quick, I'll tell you exactly what I think about the score. I think Clemson's going to win this game. I think somewhere. I think we'll see another 34 points, probably 34-10, somewhere in there. Parker Henderson's in here. Big Mick, how's it going, Big Mick? 3 score. Clemson scores 50 points. SEC dog, of course he comes in here. He's having some fun. Glad you stopped by. Taters will be playing backups in fourth quarter. Game over in 3. Huffer, Billy, Paul. Bobby, you clean up good, you pretty boy. Ha, 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 ha. Sorry, I meant Brian. That's funny. That is funny. Justin Noble, looking to stir the pot a little bit. Justin, I'm glad you're here to stir the pot. Let's go. I look back to the 18 Syracuse team as they were the only good Syracuse team in the past. How many years? Does Clemson have guys like Clellan, Farrell, T-Law? No, they don't. You're a great point. Remember, Syracuse was leading over the entire game. Guys not nearly as talented as they do now. I will say this. Yeah, that's a great point. And also, that was the same team that beat Alabama 44-16. I was also at the South Carolina game that year, sitting in the West End zone when Jake Bentley torched that same defense for 510 yards. Clemson has even when they have great talent, they have a very, very bad tendency in certain games to play down to their competition. So, I mean, you make a great point. Brian trying to look like Jumbo Fisher. No, No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Also, if I was trying to be Jimbo Fisher, I'd have like 60 NIL deals going on right now. I would have recruits knocking at this window over here. I think Clemson doesn't play a great game. They will get their first loss, Ridge Runner. Hey, it's always possible. I think DJ's really got it going on, and I think he's got enough offensive players who are doing their thing that's going to make it really, really difficult. I watched them. I'm telling you, I watched Syracuse play NC State, and they struggled with the second string quarterback out of Charleston Southern. So, and SEC dog says, don't pull a Tennessee and tear everything up after beating an undefeated team. The national champs in October. Excuse me. Hey, that was funny. I am shocked that they let them tear down the goalpost and throw it in the Tennessee River. I'm surprised that all those like activists wasn't down there, throwing stuff and doo-dooing in the streets. And, they always ruin a good time. Yeah, they always ruin everything. I'm glad they threw that goalpost in the Tennessee River. I think it was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun to watch them do that. But yeah, we'll try not to do that. Well, listen, everybody, I'm going to close this video down. If you know anyone who likes to talk Clemson football, ACC football, college football, pass it along to them. Let them know to come on over here and listen. Listen, here's the deal. I have so many views per week, and I've had some decent subscriptions go up thanks to Parker Henderson sharing it with people. But I want to tell everybody, subscribing is free. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button, and it's free. So that does help out my channel. I'm just telling you, it does help out my channel, and it's free to use. So pass that along, hit the thumbs up, and turn on the notifications. Well, I'm Brian Knight. I am not Bobby Durkins. At least not right now. He'll probably be showing up a little later. You keep watching, keep sharing it, and go Tigers.